There he is, Michael Hill, correspondent, NJTV News. You recognize him from the studio, the set. Good to see you, my friend.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. It is an honor to have you. Every night on NJTV News, important things happen. But one night I told you, I actually texted you while I was watching it. You did a report called Trauma, Tragedy, and Treatment, a 5-part series. Set it up.
It was part of a fellowship project for USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism. They contacted me last March asking me to participate in the fellowship. I did. They asked me what did I want to focus on. I said trauma, trauma-informed care. So went out there for fellowship training in July, came back, started working on this series. Didn't know it was going to be 5 parts, didn't know if it was going to be 3 parts. And it was really to focus on underserved communities. Places like Newark, places like Camden. I decided to focus on Newark because so much is taking place right here. Southward Children's Alliance, Greater Newark Healthcare Coalition, you know, Carrie Lagoso, Miseral, and others like that, Cecilia Zalkin, who are all on the ground doing a lot of work. So I decided to focus on Newark itself and just came away with just incredible stuff.
So we, in fact, are part of our production team is part of an operation called Right From the Start, NJ, looking at infants and toddlers and those who care for them. And Michael's series, and by the way, you'll see the website for NJTV, check out this series. But Michael's about to set up this clip that features a young lady by the name of Ashanti Jones who not just had a big impact on you as a journalist, but on a lot of people who saw her set it up.
Changed my direction for this project, Steve. I didn't know what her story was. I asked the Southward Children's Alliance to help me find someone who could help me tell this story. This is someone who, at the age of 7, father was convicted of drug trafficking. He was in prison, so the father wasn't around. Mother addicted drugs, wasn't exactly a protective parent, no supportive parent in the household. Ashanti was 7 years old, 2 brothers in the household. One day, cops, social workers knock on the door, take the kids away. They all wind up in foster care. Ashanti hadn't seen some of them since. And she spent the next 10 years after that longing to be with a mother whom she eventually would realize the mother gave up her maternal rights. Once she got to high school, and she had some disturbance issues and so forth, once she got to high school, she had what I guess most of us would call that eureka moment.
Set it up. Alvin, our great director and the team in the control room, let's go to the clip from Michael's series on NJTV News called Trauma, Tragedy, and Treatment.
You're sitting here telling me that at 17 years old, you initiated going to the guidance counselor, telling the guidance counselor that you wanted a better outcome for your life, and you're 17 years old. And then you went from a near failing student to the next year a straight A student. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. At this point, I was trying to prove something. So I was proving that I was above. Like I don't need you, you know. And so it had to be about me. And I knew that, you know, I wanted to be someone I was proud of.
Michael, why did she move you so much?
In the 40 years I've been doing this, Steve, of all the interviews I've ever had, this is the only one during the middle of the interview, the story made me cry. This story of triumph, this story of tragedy, this story of someone who, again, at 17, had the presence of mind to look at her surroundings and say, I don't want to wind up like the people around me, the people who, I guess to a certain extent, raised me to a certain extent. I don't want to be like my mother. There are opportunities out there. I need to go and take advantage of these, but I'm not going to take advantage of these and have a better outcome if I stay on this course. At 17, Steve.
Now, she's obviously a special young lady, you know, motivated and tough and dedicated to trying to be the best she can be. Is she the exception of those who have experienced what are commonly referred to as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences?
I don't know. And I'll tell you the reason I say that is because there are opportunities out there for people who've been through what Ashanti has been through and others, less traumatic, more traumatic. And one of the things that Carrie Lagoso Miseral always points out—
One of the leaders in this movement.
One of the leaders in the movement. One of the things she's always pointing out is that there are resources there, and it's based on an individual basis to a certain extent, and how willing you are to participate in this recovery, in this treatment. But there are opportunities to do it. And that's one of the things I wanted this series to show, that as bad as things may be for individuals, there is, almost to say hope is kind of trite, but there are opportunities for recovery, for resilience, for treatment. And that's what I think this series is all about.
It's interesting. By the way, we'll put up the site again for people to see the 5-part series on NJTV News. But the other question is this. From a policy point of view, you and I have done, Michael and I, we did a very challenging and important conversation about police-minority relations a couple of years ago. And we kept asking the question, what policy changes need to be made? As it relates to your series, traumas, tragedy, and treatment, what policy changes need to be made?
More recognition of trauma, better resources to try to diagnose it. You know, Dr. Nadine Berg-Harris with the Center for Youth Wellness, you interviewed her out in San Francisco.
Yeah, a wonderful book out in San Francisco, right?
Exactly. And so one of the things that she's focusing on, this
and
national
she's in your series as well.
Yes, she is. This national campaign to focus on pediatricians, but not just medical doctors, but others out there in the health sector, to screen people for trauma. Not to say that everybody, just because you suffer some kind of traumatic incidents doesn't mean that you're necessarily traumatized. It depends on the individual. So one of her things is doctors should screen for this, and not just children, but for families, to find out what's going on in the household. And then I would think, based on some of the research that we did, more recognition needs to be given to trauma, more resources, certainly, and certainly more counseling and so forth.
Like I said, the series is called Traumas, Tragedy, and Treatment, a 5-part series that Michael and the great team here at NJTV News put together. We put the site up several times. Make sure you check it out. But most importantly, Michael, let me just say this to you. The work that you did here, the work that you and your colleagues do every night, that's the reason why we all got into public television in the first place. Well done, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Check you out next time. Thank you, Michael.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey Education Association, NJM Insurance Group, Berkeley College, Wells Fargo, and by Summit Medical Group.